Good afternoon, once again. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you. I'm Steve Gregorian, President and CEO of the Detroit Economic Club. Welcome to today's meeting. 92 years of incredible speakers and networking, and that tradition continues today. I especially want to welcome our DEC members. If you're not a DEC member yet, give me 10 seconds to convince you, please. Your next job, prospect, client, best friend is right in this room. We invite you to invest in you. Join today. You can do it at econclub.org. In fact, if you want to do it today, we will give you a free event ticket you can use in the months of May and June. So econclub.org. As we get started, I would just ask you to silence your cell phone so we do not disturb today's program. And you've been with us before. You know we have a tradition of starting with the Pledge of Allegiance and a prayer. So kindly stand and join me as we honor our country with the pledge. The flag is to my right. I pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, and to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, and kindly remain standing as our invocation today will be delivered by my very good friend and DEC's good friend, Mark Ostash. Mark is a compassionate person and friend who loves and prays for the companies he works with. Mark, come on up.
All right, Mark. Thank you, Steve. Thanks, buddy. Before I pray, I just want to give us two references. I know we're here to talk a lot about the future of auto and the uncertainty that's in front of us. And I just want to remind us of the uncertainty that existed 100 years ago, over 100 years ago, when the horses were looking around saying, "Are our jobs going away?" So as we hold that thought, I want you to also understand the enthusiastic nature that must have existed in that transition from horse and buggy to the autos back then. And I pray that the same level of enthusiasm happens today. The word enthusiastic, or entheo, comes from two Latin words that mean God is inside of us. So as we pray here in a moment, I just want to invite an enthusiastic spirit over each and every one of us as we get into the remarks. So let us bow our heads. Father God, we thank you so much for today that we can come together to talk about the future of both automotive, the economy, and the great state of Michigan. We invite your enthusiastic spirit just to fall upon the conversation between the folks that will be here on the panel. We just thank you for the opportunity to innovate, to express imagination, and to have the ability to trust in the future that is held in your hands. We love you, we trust you, and we thank you for this day. In your name we pray these things. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Mark. You may all be seated. Mark does a fantastic job. If you're looking for a keynote, he does a great job of talking to your company about being connected in today's digital world. So, all right. Students are here today and always courtesy of our generous corporate sponsors. Their morning already began with a private reception with our speakers. Hold your applause while I let you know who's with us. We've got two groups from Melvindale High School, one group sponsored by Deloitte, another by Gardner White Furniture. The Hazel Park High School, yes, I love school spirit, good job. Thanks to Shatika, McDonald, and Accenture. And then two groups from PNC Bank, thanks Mike Bickers, from Oak Park High School. Not as good, you got to work on that. All right, join me in a round of applause to thank the sponsors and welcome the students. A couple things on your table. One, our corporate sponsors and partners, make no mistake, we could not be here without their generous support. They make it possible for us to do programs like today. So thank you if you're part of those organizations. We'd love to add you if you're not a corporate sponsor. Happy to talk with you about the many great benefits in doing so. Also on your table is our seasonal lineup, and man, we've got a lot going on. Next up, a week from tomorrow, May 8th. Yay, we're in May already. That's good. We will be joined by Michigan State's President Kevin Guskowitz and their Athletic Director Jay Batt for an innovation discussion. On June 8th, we will host Senator Slotkin for the first time, and on June 16th, we'll host another economist, KPMG Chief economist Diane Swank, and that will be our last meeting before we let you get away in flip-flops for the summer. So this spring is red hot at the DEC, and we want you part of it. So check your calendar, get your tickets, and we look forward to seeing you. All right, 92 years of speakers, and those speakers tell the history of our country. And April 30th was a popular date in our history. Gus, Mike, and Mike, you now joined a distinguished list of 21 others who were on our stage on April the 30th. Here's just a couple of highlights. It was a popular day for visitors from Washington, D.C. On various decades, we hosted Secretary of Health and Human Services, the Secretary of Agriculture, and the head of the APA on this date. In a strange but true twist, I'm not making this up because I look at our data, we hosted the governor of Alaska in 1951, and of course a different governor of Alaska, don't know why, but in 1979. Not sure what that's about, but we hosted 2 governors of Alaska. And for you Detroit Tigers fans, you might remember on this date in 2010, General Manager Dave Dombrowski and that stand-up comedian, also serving as the manager, Jim Leland, was on our stage. I also wanted to point out there's some storied history of the DEC just in this particular room. We've hosted Henry Kissinger, Jesse Jackson, and Mike Huckabee amongst others. So guys, we're pleased to add you as our 22nd, 23rd, 24th speakers on this day in DEC history. Congrats and thanks for being with us. All right, finally, your smartphone. We want you to be involved in today's program. Take lots of pictures, share with your social media networks, tell them how cool it is to be at the DEC, and they should join the club as well. And all right, let's bring up someone who will be doing triple duty today as our presiding officer, our moderator, and a panelist. Mike Bickers is the regional president for Detroit and Southeast Michigan at PNC Bank. He is a valued DEC board member, an amazing supporter of the DEC, a dear friend to me personally, and he provides tremendous support to so many good things here in Detroit, our region, and our state. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mike Bickers.
Thank you. All right, good morning, team. How are you guys? I'm excited. You know, we're in automotive, I call it capital. Obviously, I think everybody in this room will benefit from what we're going to talk about today. And the best part is I don't have to have any of the answers. It's like the best. So I'd like to call up my 2 friends on the panel this morning, Mr. Gus Faucher, PNC Chief Economist. Welcome, Gus. And a friend of mine, Mike Wall, he listens to me go on and on about the automotive industry like I know what I'm talking about, but he's so kind to listen to me, Executive Director at S&P Global Mobility. All right. I'm going to try not to have my back to you guys too much, so I'll swing around in the chair, hope not fall out, but we will see. You guys ready to get into it? By the way, you guys had some great questions already. And a lot of them just happen, they'll get answered in the normal discussion. But we also will pick out a number of those after the fact. You guys have some great questions about Tesla and other things. So Gus, we're gonna get right to it. A lot of economic data out like last night, this morning. So when you think about the rest of this year, what are some of the economic factors that you're thinking about?
Well, I think the biggest thing we're thinking about right now is the situation in the Middle East with the closure of the Strait of Hormuz and the higher gasoline prices in particular that we're seeing. So we see gas prices up by about $1 a gallon. That acts as a tax on consumers. We're paying more to fill our tanks. That means that we have less money available to spend on other things. Now, there are some factors that are offsetting that right now. People are getting bigger tax refunds because of the tax cuts that were included in the One Big Beautiful Bill. You know, we continue to see job growth. We continue to see wage growth. But what we're expecting is slower economic growth in 2026. We're not going to see GDP growth as strong as we saw in 2023, 2024, first half of 2025, but we should see continued growth in the economy, albeit at a somewhat slower pace, continued growth in consumer spending, and job growth is going to be weaker than it's been in recent years, but the unemployment rate should be right around 4.5%. That's a good long-run unemployment rate. Inflation is going to be high in the near term. We saw that in the numbers that came out this morning because of higher energy prices. But I think that assuming we get a resolution to the situation in Iran sometime over the next 2 or 3 months, we should see inflation start to slow by the fourth quarter of 2026.
Thank you, Gus. So, Mike, after all of that, what do you think that means for where our auto sector sits? And secondly, when you think about production remainder of this year, demand, and so on, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so realize everything that Gus was saying becomes an input into our business when we're trying to think about how the auto industry is going to behave. And really, when you look in the modest rear view, the recent rear view, it actually hasn't been too bad. Vehicle sales have held up actually exceedingly well, I would submit. January, February, and March, first quarter came in actually pretty well. Even April is looking decent, and it's a little odd right now. And to try to be in this industry forecasting it, it's difficult right now because on the one hand, you've got some consumer signals which have still been, I would say, stable to generally positive. And then we've got the situation in Iran, which is most certainly a challenge and a headwind. The Strait of Hormuz, I don't think we've fully seen the full impacts of this yet. Even with oil prices and gas prices where they're at, our energy practice is talking to us saying, look, there are some big challenges with the strait being closed, especially as we start thinking about some of the other feedstocks that flow through there or don't flow through there right now. So there's some challenges that the industry is going to have to wrestle with, irrespective of just general demand levels, that these next few months could be a little challenging. And what Gus was saying, as we even see inflation being impacted as the year progresses, that's how we see it potentially impacting vehicle sales. Still an optimist at heart. Again, I think the industry itself has been navigating a lot of potholes lately, EVs and the lack of engagement maybe there, the reset we've got going on there, and some other things, those other cross currents that we've been trying to address as we go. But in the extreme near term, it's really going to be all about the strait, what's happening there, and how that impacts both those critical feedstocks, oil, and everything else.
What do you think about SAR and production, annual production relative to demand for the rest of the year?
The good news on this, so I know it's kind of a little bit dour there. Good news is from a U.S. perspective and a North American perspective, we're actually still in relatively good shape compared to other regions. So we are, I dare say, a little bit more insulated on this. So from a U.S. light vehicle sales perspective, we're calling for 15.8 million units this year for U.S. light vehicle sales. Now that's a little bit of a step down from last year. Last year we did about 16.4 million, but we had some other expectations in mind. We were expecting to see some of the cost of tariffs start to weigh a little bit more heavily on the consumer, especially this year. Again, the consumer is having to wrestle with a bunch of cross currents themselves. Production-wise, we're looking at 15 million units, North American light vehicle production. Last year we did about 15.3 million. So again, a little bit off from last year, but not bad in the overall scheme of things. Again, I think from an automaker perspective and a supplier perspective, you can get those numbers, that would be good. Again, we're cautioning a little bit of risk in the extreme near term over these next few months, especially as it relates to the strait.
Mike, you remember back in the day, if I can say that, the number used to be like 17 million, but that's because I think we were giving away 1.5 million of them.
Yeah. In more ways than one. I mean, it's really interesting you said. I get that. I usually get that question from financial clients too, by the way.
Well, I work for the bank.
So I know. When are we going to get back to 17? When are we going to get to 18 even? When can we hit 18? Well, we realize the market looks different now than it did. I mean, we've crowded a number of buyers out. So it goes back to the affordability conversation, not to use that old saw, and I know it's kind of cliche. Everybody says, oh, cars cost a lot. They cost too much. They do cost a lot. And we have crowded out some of those buyers into the used car market. And what you said too is back in those days, we were kind of subsidizing and selling those cars, not just to retail channels, but to think about the daily rental channel. Back in 2019, we sold about 2.1 million vehicles just through the daily rental channels. Last year, I think we were about 1.5 million. And during the depths of COVID, we were barely 1 million units. So, and that's a market that I don't think is going to come back the same way. So I think the daily rental channel kind of figured out their fleets and they're kind of comfortable with how they're operating. So that kind of recalibrates things as well.
Thank you, Mike. This is a big one. It may take you a while. So impacts the big, beautiful bill. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I think in the short run, it's a positive. I mean, it's going to be less of a positive than we originally thought it was because of the higher energy prices. But I think for those households that are getting bigger refund checks, those are going to come in very handy right now. And so I do think that that's going to help cushion the blow from the higher energy prices and continue to support consumer spending growth through the rest of 2026. And then the business tax cuts, I think, are generally going to be supportive of corporate profitability. That's supporting equity prices. The stock market, despite everything with tariffs, despite everything with Iran, is near record highs. That's supporting spending by high-income households, and that's particularly important for your luxury vehicles. Folks see that their 401k has gone up, and they feel more comfortable going out and buying that new luxury car. So the support to the equity markets from the One Big Beautiful Bill has been a positive. There are some drags from the bill, and one in particular for the automotive industry is we're running much larger federal government budget deficits. The government is out there borrowing more money, and that is pushing up interest rates, and so that makes it more expensive to finance. And that is one of those factors with affordability that Mike was talking about. And I think in the current environment, I don't expect to see the Fed cut anytime soon. They're concerned about inflation that's too high. They're looking at the One Big Beautiful Bill, they're looking at Iran and so forth. So I don't think we get much relief on the interest rate front. And I do think that going forward, we've had a period of abnormally low interest rates really since the financial crisis through the recovery from COVID. And now they're up to what would historically be considered more normal levels, but that's been difficult for homeowners, for car buyers to adjust to. But I think we need to be in that place where we look at interest rates where they are now. I don't see them moving much lower anytime soon. And so that is going to be an issue for the auto industry in terms of supporting affordability.
So not even Q4 in terms of a rate cut?
No, not unless we get a quick resolution to Iran and we see oil prices back down to $70 a barrel or something like that soon.
We pulled our rate cut out too.
You did?
Yeah, and we don't see it happening this year. And what Gus mentioned too, I mean, as it relates to interest rates, just realize the monthly payment on new vehicles right now is exceeding $750 a month. And it has not come down really all that much, even with the rate cuts that we've had. Now that tells me that we're rolling in some negative equity, we're stretching loan terms, and we're having to offset some of those impacts, and that has that escalating impact on monthly payment.
So a lot of our companies and a lot of them are in the room, and thank you guys for that partnership as well. But they're having to do pivots and strategy pivots, and then strategy becomes tactics because you can't leave things in place too long. So powertrains, I really want to know from you. So between battery electric vehicle, extended range electric vehicle, plug-in hybrid, and ICE, you can't get it all right, and capital is not limitless. Yeah. So how are they dealing with it, the OEMs and suppliers?
And last year when we moved into this sort of tariff heavy targeting, we became a tactically organized industry that really needs to be thinking strategically, and it wasn't by nobody's fault on our end in automotive. It just wasn't what it was. But we've had to course correct mightily. I mean, when the new administration came in, changed up the regulations, the fuel economy regulations, and frankly too, there was the consumer side of the equation. We've seen some hesitancy on embracing and adopting full EV. And what we're seeing the evolution into is what it really probably should have been from the jump was it is going to be a portfolio of powertrain technologies. There wasn't going to be a one single silver bullet, at least in the US. That was, and frankly in Europe too, by the way, we're seeing elements of this as well. So it is going to be a combination of battery electric, hybrid, advanced internal combustion as well. And really what we're already starting to see, it's early days since the Iran war and oil prices spiked up, but we're seeing that even in the data. Consumers are kind of voting with their dollars. Hybrids are doing much better. We're seeing some really solid performance for hybrid. We're seeing some some improvement on battery electric here in the US. It's probably more so in Europe for a host of reasons, but certainly the energy price is a big one. At the end of the day, it is going to be a portfolio of technologies, especially here in the US.
Thank you, Mike. So Gus, on the tariff piece, is it hard to break down who's paid for what, who's absorbed customer, supplier, who? It's not a third.
No, I think the evidence shows that it's been about 3/4 of the higher tariff costs have been passed along to consumers.
Okay.
So, businesses, they are in business to make money. If they are paying higher prices for imports, they're going to pass that along to their consumers as much as they can. And we have seen, even before the situation with Iran, we did see inflation, in particular goods inflation, tick up after Liberation Day last year, and we're still feeling some of those effects. Now, we do think that most of that impact is probably going to wash out of the data by the second half of 2026. So we will get some inflationary relief there, still dealing with higher energy prices. But I think the evidence is pretty clear that businesses have, and some of them tried to hold the line, but there's only so much that they can do. But the evidence is that businesses have been passing along those costs off to consumers, and we're paying that in higher prices for all of the goods that we buy every day.
Thank you. So Mike, both two automotive companies, because I can't name them. Some of them are clients, and I don't want to go back and forth around that piece. So you think they'll really get the money back? I think GM, well, I did mention it now, $500 million.
Yeah.
If you work for GM, you got $500 million coming at some point. Ford's like $1 billion plus, and they went ahead and recorded that they were going to do so and take it into earnings, I suppose.
Yeah.
But do they really get it back?
They're talking about. They're mentioning it on the earnings calls. It's in their common parlance right now. So I do think they will. It seems like the process is. My only quibble would be how quickly will he get it back, because I gotta believe there's gonna be a lag in all this. But it does seem like, from what I've been hearing too, is the mechanism is being developed to affect that. It's just a matter of, I think, more when as opposed than if right now. It is interesting to see the divergence, though, the different numbers. There's big numbers we're talking about in general, but $1.3 billion, 500 billion, or there's a lot of money flowing out there that's being thrown out. We'll see where it comes in at.
Yeah, I think it's hard to tell your shareholders, oh yeah, there's this money out there, and we're just going to leave it on the table.
Yeah.
And also, it's not like, I get asked occasionally, well, are businesses going to rebate that money to their customers? I think that is highly unlikely to take place.
That doesn't happen, does it?
Yeah, I think that, to the extent that these companies paid higher tariff costs in 2025, early 2026, I think they're going to, it's going to flow to their bottom lines later this year.
We had a lot of questions, and we had this question prepared as well as we prepared. China, it's a big thing, but who do you? First, I'll go to you in terms of just macro. So, who's kind of winning that war between the United States and China?
So first of all, I think winning is a misnomer. I think that trade is not a zero-sum game. It's not the case that one side wins and the other side loses. And I think we suffer if we try to look at it from that perspective. Now, that being said, there are tactics that countries use in order to boost their economies at the expense of other economies, exchange rate manipulation and so forth. But I think that as a global economy, we all benefit from wealthier Chinese consumers who are going to be purchasing more goods and services, some of them produced in China, some of them produced abroad. We have seen tremendous gains in Chinese living standards over the last 20, 30, 40 years. And I think that that's a good thing for the United States and a good thing for the global economy. But we do need to make sure that everybody is playing by the same set of rules. And that, countries, there are lots of tactics that countries can use to try to benefit their industries. Tariffs, exchange rate influence, that type of thing. And so we need to make sure that everybody, that we set the global rules and that everybody is following the same set of rules. And then I think there are legitimate national security concerns. And we saw that, for example, with the situation with semiconductor chips, and that was a huge issue, a couple of years ago. When they're all manufactured in one country, you are placing your entire economy at risk. And so I think that we need to think about these things, and it's not just defense national security, but broadly our overall economy to make sure that we have robust supply chains, that we have some sources of domestic demand for some of these goods and things like that. And so I think that that's also a legitimate area where we need to make sure that, China doesn't necessarily have us over a barrel, so that if they decide to cut off supplies or chips or whatever it is, that the U.S. economy suffers. So we do need to think about those types of issues too.
Okay, we have to go to another country, Gus.
Okay.
It's closer to us all here.
Okay.
It's right across the water.
Yes.
All right. So Canada. Talk to me about just sort of globally what that means, but really for like Michigan, we import like hundreds of thousands of pickup trucks from there,
Yes.
I think. So
yes. No, I mean, I think the United States-Canada relationship is a huge benefit to both nations. I think that Canada has been a tremendous support to the United States, and the U.S. has been a tremendous support to Canada. I think that NAFTA and allowing for the more free flowing of goods has benefited the U.S. economy, the Canadian economy, the Mexican economy. And so I am very discouraged, both from an economic standpoint, but also from a geopolitical standpoint, that we have weakened that relationship. And so I think it's going to, I mean, the U.S. is a much larger market. The drag is going to be greater for Canada than it is for the United States. But there is a cost to us imposing tariffs, imposing trade barriers on Canada. And to the extent that it weakens that relationship, the political relationship that we have, then I think that's, to me, as much of a concern as the economic issue.
This might be unfair to ask. So, like, worst case scenario for oil prices relative to at the pump. I think California hit over $6 yesterday, but it's California. I mean, everything costs more in California.
Yeah.
What could it get to $7 if this goes on another 6 months?
Yeah, I mean, $6 or $7 nationally, I can see that easily.
You can.
And I think if we see oil getting to $150 a barrel, if we see gas prices getting to $6 or $7 a gallon, then I think we're more likely to see a recession than not. Just because the drag on consumers, the drag on businesses is going to be so great. The Strait of Hormuz, about 20% of global oil shipments go through there. Even though we are a net exporter of energy, the prices are set globally. So what happens in the Middle East, as we've seen, has a tremendous impact on U.S. energy prices. But if 3-4 months from now, no oil is getting through the Strait of Hormuz, oil prices shoot up to $150 a barrel, I think we're facing significant problems. And it's not just the U.S. economy, the problems are more pronounced overseas. Japan and Korea import basically all of their oil. Mm-hmm. And a weakening in those economies, causes a global recession that rebounds on the United States. We can have a global recession without a U.S. recession, but it does make the U.S. economy more vulnerable to a downturn. So to some extent, we're all in this together.
Yeah. So I got to ask about AI. The funny thing about AI is you'll hear companies talk about AI, and they use this cute term. I think we use it too. Addressable spend. I know you know what ours is at PNC, but I ain't saying it. Mm-hmm. So talk to me about, like, both of you, about AI, like impact to industry and real cost save people or companies can expect.
No, AI is what we call a productivity improvement. That is, it allows each individual worker to be more productive. And I think Detroit is a great place to talk about that, because we've seen those productivity improvements in the auto industry over time, right? You move to mass production and assembly lines, you have robots that do the welding and all those kinds of things. That means it takes fewer man hours to produce I probably should say person hours, takes fewer person hours to produce a car. And that means that each individual auto worker is producing more output. And yes, that causes job losses, and that's been a problem for the Detroit area, but it also means higher living standards over time as we have more productive workers. And so I think AI is going to be like that. And the question is, we need to make sure that we are addressing the dislocations that AI is going to cause. I think it's going to be profitable for many companies, not necessarily all companies, but I think we will see continued investment in AI, but that we as a society need to think about how are we going to retrain workers? How are we going to make sure that they have access to health insurance, that they have, income, so that we all benefit from AI and it's not just the top 5% or the 1%.
Thank you. Mike, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, and I think in the auto space, we're still, I think, largely wrestling with this, how best to use it. I mean, in a manufacturing environment, you could have it at an end-of-line testing. You have it embedded within the process there. Think about it at a dealership. Right now we all get inundated with these, blast of emails that they're meant to be, they try to trick you to think that there's a human talking to you, but there really isn't. It's all kind of a bot kind of situation. But we evolve beyond that into using, more intelligence around that whole process, bringing that into the retail connection on that side, and then obviously at the automaker and supplier level. I mean, it's going on right now. I mean, everybody's kind of got it, either on their board or they're executing on it. It's kind of choppy. It's one of those things that we're trying to develop best practices and then finding those companies to kind of be fast followers, and it's still ongoing.
Yeah. So Gus, private credit, like fact, fiction?
So I think private credit is an issue in the economy, but I don't think it's going to cause a recession in the economy. You look back at the problems that we had back with mortgage lending back in the, in 2007, 2008. The financial system was less tightly regulated then. I think I think that banks themselves are more cautious. And I'll say this for Mike's sake, when I talk about this, I'm talking about the banking system in general and not necessarily PNC in particular. But,
thanks.
I think that banks learn their lessons. I think regulators learn their lessons. There is some exposure out there, but we saw, for example, a few years ago with Silicon Valley Bank, that collapsed, but that didn't cause broader problems in the banking system because that was isolated to a certain set of circumstances. And I think with private credit, it's the same kind of thing. We may see some, we may see some problems in banks or other financial institutions that are involved in private credit, but I don't think it represents a threat to the current expansion. It may just cause some temporary disruptions.
Thank you. Mike, let's go to Europe, right? And manufacturers. I think here is, I don't know, the troubles that the Germans are having in the marketplace, and all their earnings have been coming out, and Volkswagen and down, and BM, even Porsche's just something you never thought I would see happen with Porsche.
Right.
So how do they get out of that?
Yeah, and just to set the stage for everybody, they're fighting a three-front battle right now. There's the domestic market. The domestic European market is under outright assault from Chinese imports and increasingly Chinese vehicles that are going to be produced in Europe. The horse is out of the barn, whatever colloquialism you want to use for that, that's being visited upon them right now. And that's not just the premium players, it's the Renaults of the world, the Stellantis on their part as well. That's one front. Second front, of course, is tariff and trade. You want to ship a vehicle over to the US, you're going to pay at the dock. That's the second. And the third is within China. Especially those German premium brands have enjoyed some very strong growth in the past in China. What's past is past. That Chinese market has moved quickly towards domestic brands, key domestic brands. And now those key domestic brands, and Mike touched on it earlier, the China threat is real, and it's real for us in the US. Again, we can't go out and buy a China-specific vehicle here in the US. I do tend to think it's a matter of when, not if. But we got to figure out how to deal with that, because the threat is real. For anybody who saw reports out of the Beijing Auto Show, I mean, if that doesn't give you pause, seeing the product that they're launching both in China and elsewhere, in Europe, in Mexico, Canada. You touch on Canada. Canada's got this agreement now too. So the German automakers, taking it back to German automakers, they're fighting a multi-front battle right now. And it's showing up in their financials, frankly, and it's a challenge, and it's not going to be easily solved. They're trying to do some course correction, especially in China, maybe partnering with some players there as well. But there needs to be a strategy to both attack China, obviously the domestic market, and the U.S., and it's going to be tricky.
Like, I think they have something like 80 or 90 Chinese automakers or something like that.
More. Yeah.
So some shakeout comes because of the pricing issue. Like, what, maybe 5 survive?
Well, see, that's the thing. I mean, for 20 years, we've been talking about consolidation in China. It's always so difficult because any of us going in there going, that doesn't make sense. There's 100 manufacturers and they're operating at 53% capacity utilization. How are they even surviving? The reason why they're surviving is because they got somebody backstopping them. It's either the central government. The central government will say, we want consolidation, but then the provinces and the other regional municipalities say, yeah, we want consolidation, but not our guy. You take that guy, consolidate him out. And it's not happening. It's not happening as quickly. So we see some marginal players, but to your point, when I talk about some of the stronger domestic brands, it's like you can count them on maybe 2 hands. I mean, again, out of 100 manufacturers, it's maybe 5 or 10 that are really the consequential, maybe closer to 10, maybe a little more. And those are the folks that are going out and growing outside of China. It's not even about producing in China as much for them. They're building up capacity outside of China. And some of those top 6 or 7 domestic brands are going to be growing 1.5 million units of capacity outside of China over these next 5 years or so. So it is a multi-front battle there as well, and in China, it's going to be fascinating to see how it all plays out because, again, we've got a very motivated market over there, players.
Gus, I'm going to go a couple minutes earlier, Steve, to audience questions that were given to us because they're so good, and this is a good one because, and I'll just read it. The government's broader retreat from transparency makes it difficult to assess U.S. economic conditions with confidence. So how does Gus do his job?
Okay, so that's a great question. So when it comes to cutting spending, one way the government does that is by cutting back on the statistical agencies, the Bureau of Economic Analysis, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and so forth. So those agencies have a lot fewer workers now than they have had in the past. And then we had the shutdown and we had issues related to that. I am convinced that the workers in the agencies, they are doing the best job that they can, and that the data themselves are not being manipulated for political purposes. We can trust that. I'm more concerned about the quality of the data, and we've seen that in the employment statistics, and we get large revisions from month to month and so forth. And they're trying to do more of the data collection online and so forth. But I think the data is, I'm more concerned about the quality of the data than I have been recently, and that does make it a little more difficult. But the key thing is, what I do is I don't focus on 1 month's worth of data. When we get the jobs report, we'll get that for April a week from tomorrow. I'm not going to say, well, what was the jobs number for April, but what was the job growth for the last 3 or 4 months, and what does that tell us about the economy? And then I also try to confirm things with other data sources, whether they're coming from the public sector, the private sector. So, there's a lot of discussion about layoffs in the economy, and layoffs are really low right now. And I know that not just because we hear that from companies, but because we have low initial unemployment insurance claims. There's a survey that the BLS puts out that includes layoffs and everything like that. So I'm kind of triangulating between different data sources to try to get to the key and see what really is there. But that is a problem, and I would love to see the statistical agencies have a bit more funding so they can go out and do a better job of collecting this data, making it available to the public, finding new data sources and so forth. And the auto industry, the statistics, they've cut back on some of the statistics that they're reporting for the auto industry.
Yeah, it's a challenge, even in the auto industry. Automakers, some are clinging to their data a little closer, others not, maybe not as much. The only one thing that we can kind of lean on is registrations data. We track that religiously, and with all 50 states and countries and provinces all around the world. So we always like to kind of joke internally, the automakers can't hide from registrations. Eventually it's going to come out, and we do see that in the data, but there can be a lag. There's definitely does contribute to that.
So this probably happens at like every bank. So I got to ask, it's not here. So does our CEO call you and say, I disagree?
Bill is very willing to make his view known. So
I know,
yes.
That's why I asked.
Yes. So,
So what do you do? Or does he say, you better be right? So which one is it?
So it's funny because my bio says I'm the chief economic spokesperson for PNC. It's not like I create the forecast by myself. I do it in consultation with our colleagues. But when it comes to what is the PNC line on the economy, it's, I'm the one who bears the responsibility for that. I will say that, and this doesn't happen very often, but this does happen occasionally, and, we need to iron things out. But I mean, like Jamie Dimon, I don't know if there are any JP Morgan people out here, he is very willing to speak his mind, and I would hate to be one of his economists because he'd probably be contradicting me all the time.
Thank you. But I can always tell when one of our clients is in the pickup truck business, because they need to know from you, will it continue to be strong?
Yeah, pickup trucks are critically important in this industry. For any suppliers that are out there, I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. A good chunk of your book of business is probably tied up in 3 or 4 pickup truck programs. There's some good news there. Again, we talk about high oil prices, and it is a general headwind for sure. And especially if we do run the risk of seeing those prices creep up to, gosh, God forbid, $140, $150 a barrel for a sustained period. I will give some glimmers of hope on that front, though. A few different things. One, we are seeing some of the automakers really trying to lean in at least a little bit on the affordability side. We see it, Ram as an example, with their Express trim level, bringing in a more kind of entry to mid-trim type of offering there to bring more buyers into the fold on that front. We see from a content perspective and a product renovation perspective, General Motors is going to be launching their next generation lineup late this year on that front. So again, starting that product cadence as well. The other thing that is interesting too, when we look at the data from an oil price, gas price perspective, just to give us maybe a little bit of a sanity check there. A lot of times, and I'm guilty of it too, I try to look to analogs. I look back to prior events. In 73 and 1980, those were oil shocks, but it's a different type of discussion as it related to the auto industry. I go back to 2008. For those that may recall, we had an oil price spike mid-08, and we saw some segment shifting there. We saw some folks moving into compact passenger cars, mid-sized passenger cars, and the like. Reality is we don't have passenger cars in the system anymore. And again, as I alluded to earlier, we've pushed a lot of those buyers into the used car market, rightfully or wrongfully. Again, I hope we bring them back at some point. That's insulated us, I think, a little bit. And in fact, when you go back to 2022, another high oil, high gas time frame, Russia invades Ukraine. When I look at the data back then, full-size truck and utility share did not decline materially at all. It stayed pretty steady. And again, I'm trying not to be Pollyanna here, believe me, I'm not whistling past any graveyards. This is still a big, big risk. But there are certainly some other things that are, I think, aligning well for pickup trucks in at least the near term. But again, with the big caveat being what's going on in the Middle East and how long that goes for.
Do you think it is a mistake when you look at the domestics not to have, a fleet of sedans at least the middle to low price points?
Yeah, I saw that's kind of crept back up in the news here recently. I was chuckling a little bit because it's amazing how the industry just ebbs and flows. And I'm a sedan guy. I mean, I wish I've lamented for a while the fact that we have gotten out of that sector to a great extent. The reality is the automakers, the reason why they got out of them, they weren't making money in them. I mean, it's just the sheer fact of the matter. I do think there is a segment buyer out there for sedans. I absolutely do. And I think certain automakers have proven that point. Honda, Toyota, Nissan to some extent, although they've gotten out of some of their segments as well, Hyundai and Kia. But the reality is it's going to take a deliberate effort on the part. The automaker's got to solve the riddle on how to make money. And it can't be on making money on 400,000 units on a sedan program. Those days are gone, of course. It's going to have to be being profitable at 100 maybe, or 150 at max, and that's going to be a challenge. So I'm hopeful, but I don't know if I can necessarily lock that into the forecast as of yet.
Thank you, Mike. One last one before we go to some more. So Gus, how many, like say if it were 2, 3, 4 months in a row, job creations less than 75,000? Do you lose sleep?
I'm not, and this is one of the things that the Fed has been grappling with. Underlying trend job growth in the United States now is a lot weaker than it was 2 or 3 years ago because of lower levels of immigration and increased deportation. We don't know the answer, but it used to be that a good jobs report was 150,000 jobs per month. I think now a good jobs report is going to be 50,000 jobs per month. We just don't have the bodies to fill 150,000 jobs per month between the continued aging of the baby boomers and then lower levels of immigration. Chair Powell has said that it could be the trend job growth is zero, that we don't add any jobs per month. And in fact, one of the regional Fed presidents said it could be the trend job growth is actually negative. We could actually lose jobs every month, but still see the unemployment rate hold steady because of fewer people in the workforce. The labor force participation rate, the share of adults who are either looking for working or looking for work, that was below 62% in March. Outside of the pandemic, that's the first time that's happened since 1977, when we had the baby boomers and women entering the labor force in large numbers. So it's just a different labor market than really what we've had for the last 30 or 40 years, which means for all of you employers out here, you need to get used to a world where you are going to have to continually compete for labor, because it is just it's structurally tighter job market now than it has been, and so you need to rethink everything in terms of who you're targeting for your hiring, how much you're paying, the benefits that you offer, workplace flexibility and stuff, because you can't count on workers showing up. You need to be able to go out and actively recruit them to bring them in.
Last question. The gentleman that's most likely to be the next Fed chair. A lot of folks figure he won't be as independent as most, but do you think that's a bit overblown?
I think that Mr. Warsh is a good choice. He has been on the Board of Governors before. He understands the importance of Fed independence. I think the president has made his views on monetary policy very clear. But I am hopeful that Mr. Warsh, along with the other members of the Federal Open Market Committee, will maintain central bank independence. There's a lot of evidence out there that countries that have central banks that are independent from political pressures, those nations have lower inflation, they have better economic outcomes. So I am not losing much sleep about the loss of central bank Fed independence. I think that's one of the reasons that Chair Powell has said that he is going to stay on the Board of Governors, at least in the near term. So I'm hopeful that we can maintain that Fed independence, because I think it really is important for the United States economy over the longer run.
All right. Thank you both. Thank you very much. So we have to now go to the lightning round.
Okay.
It's not embarrassing at all. I've done it, and I was embarrassed. I'm lying. Here we go. You ready? I'm going to ask you both the same question. Person other than a family member or me that you'd like to have lunch with?
I'd like to have lunch with President Obama. I think that it would be great to talk with him about his experiences as president, the changes that he saw. That would be fantastic.
Right?
This is going to be a little auto-related. Elon Musk, man, I would, just for lunch, nothing more, nothing less, just would love.
Favorite song?
Favorite song, gosh. Born to Run by Bruce Springsteen.
All right, okay.
Oh my gosh. Boy, I'm going back to the 80s hair bands for some reason. It's like,
It's okay.
Welcome to the Jungle. That should go
Okay.
well with this industry right now. It's just, here we go.
You look so conservative.
Jumped right out at me and it just went right back to the 80s.
Yeah, like spiked here after 5 o'clock. What are you doing? Favorite vacation spot?
Aruba.
Aruba. Wow.
Traverse City.
Traverse City.
That's what I need.
Favorite sports team growing up?
The Lions.
The Lions. That's a good answer. Gus?
Phillies.
Philly. And you're from where?
I'm from Philadelphia.
Yeah, that's okay. you can trade places with anyone, who would it be, Gus?
Trade places with anyone, who would it be? I'm going to pass and let Mike answer that one.
Elon Musk? I don't know.
Yeah, no, I don't want part of that. I would say, that's another good one. It would be fascinating to trade places with the president for a day, just to see what that's all like. And I wouldn't tweet anything, I promise. Stay off Twitter. And I'm sure I wouldn't want to continue it after that day.
Okay, so I'll say Bill Demchak, our CEO, and just to see what it is that he does every day and the issues that he deals with. So.
Yeah, and you get $29 million.
I'll take, 1/365th of that, one day of it.
All right, I hope you guys cook. Best dish that you cook.
It's about the only dish I cook would be spaghetti and meatballs.
That works. Gus?
My go-
I cook. I do most of the cooking in our household, but I love doing like grilled flank steak for a crowd. It's fantastic.
For a crowd?
Yeah.
All right. See you soon. First car.
76 Firebird.
Really?
Lime green. I love that car.
Really?
Absolutely.
If I can offer up, so mine was an 81 Trans Am with the big bird on the
Oh yeah.
I know.
Even better.
I know.
So when my wife and I first got married, we got like a used Ford Festiva.
Really?
Yes.
Nice.
With like 21 good starts left in it?
Yeah.
Do they make them anymore?
I don't know.
No.
TV show. They don't, for certain. TV show you're currently binging.
Landman.
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 It's a good one.
So my wife is a physician in Pittsburgh, so we are watching The Pit, and she thinks it's by far the most realistic medical show that she's seen, and it does a good job of capturing what goes on in Pittsburgh. So.
Really? How was the draft? It looked outstanding.
It went very well. We had a
Yeah.
good time. My son came in with some of his friends. My wife was running her health system's urgent care. They actually did not have many people there, which is good. So it was a great experience. We really enjoyed it.
It's funny, we're very competitive. So part of my team over there is like that we're responsible for sort of arranging our execution of the draft for PNC. They're like, well, it wasn't as good as ours. I'm like, oh, just, it's all right. It's okay. They're on the same team. Thank you, gentlemen, so much for your time. Hopefully we all got some nuggets in the discussion. I want to thank all of you for coming and spending time with us. And I tell you, 99% of you are still here, which is great. But thank you so much on behalf of PNC Bank and all my associates. Thank you to the clients that are here and the young leaders that we got a chance to spend some time with earlier. You guys are all so inspirational. And I know you have big futures ahead of you, and good luck as well. Steve?
All right.
Thank you, guys.
That was great, Mike. Thank you. Mike, thanks.
Guys, thank you. It was a terrific conversation. Mike Wall, next time you come back, you're going to arrive in your lime green Firebird, and your walk-up music's going to be, we know what it's going to be, Welcome to the Jungle. Gus, thanks for coming in from Pittsburgh. Show off you got a strong sock game. Show your sock game to everybody. I was looking at those, little polka dots. Mike Bickers, you did.
See my socks.
No, I don't. But you deserve to take the rest of the month off. You tell Bill Demchak you can take the rest of April off. So thanks for all your support and for bringing this meeting to the DEC. All right, ladies and gentlemen, tell your friends and colleagues to join the DEC. We have a lot of fun here. On time, every time. This meeting of the Detroit Economic Club is now adjourned. Thank you. Have a good afternoon.